everybody, welcome to Learn with Steph. This is one of the videos as part of our Lessons in Law series. The focus is on OCR A Level Law, but it will be useful to anybody studying law. If you like the videos, please do subscribe and press the like button at the bottom. This is the second lesson in our series of 3 lessons about the legislative process. We are focusing specifically on the OCR A Level Law course, and the first lesson we covered the green and white papers section and the different types of bills. This lesson we're focusing on the process of legislation, so how a piece of legislation has to pass through the Houses of Parliament in order to become law. So there's a really easy way to remember the process. There's a mnemonic: green-winged dragons fly slowly clockwise round the old ruin. And we've already covered the first 3 words. So green-winged dragons, the pre-parliamentary stages of any piece of legislation. It starts as a green paper, which is a consultative document outlining the broad aims of the law proposed. What follows is a white paper, which is firm proposals for the new law, that statement of intent. And then that is made into a draft bill, a written proposal written in the proper legislative language that has been drafted and will have been checked by the relevant minister. So an education bill will have been checked by the education minister. So green paper, winged, white paper, dragons, draft bill. And they're the pre-parliamentary stages. Now for OCR, if you get a question about the legislative process or even the parliamentary process that a piece of legislation goes through, the board is expecting you to write a little bit about the pre-parliamentary process as well. So you will need to cover these 3 things. So, pre-parliamentary stages, the idea, the green paper, the white paper and the draft bill. How many parliamentary stages do you think there are? Take a guess. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to tell me. So the parliamentary stage of legislation can start in either house. So it can start in the House of Commons or the House of Lords. Usually though, most legislation starts in the House of Commons. The only exception to this rule is a finance bill, and that has to start in the House of Commons. The first parliamentary stage is called the first reading. And this is a very quick stage because pretty much all that happens is the MP who's sponsoring the bill will read out the title and the aims, and then a date will be set for the more important stage, the second reading. The second reading is the main debate, and that's the interesting one to look at when you see it on television. So the main debate, or the second reading, is when the whole House debates the bill. And after this, there will be a vote, and MPs do this vote actually physically, so it's not a secret ballot or anything like this. So MPs will pass through a door, and there is an aye door and there is a no door. And if you visit the Houses of Parliament, which are open to the public, you can actually see these doors and you can walk through them. So if an MP agrees with a piece of legislation, or a bill rather, they will pass through the aye door. If they disagree with a bill, they will pass through a no door, and they are counted as they do so. Now, often MPs have to vote with their party. So Conservative MPs would have to go through the aye door if the bill is a government-sponsored bill, because they would have to show their loyalty. And you'll be well aware of the issues that took place during the debates about Brexit, where lots of MPs were not supporting their party, and there were even MPs that were thrown out of the party and that sort of thing. There is actually a system of whips, WHIPS, but it's not a physical whip, but it's a person in the political party who is, if you like, the disciplinarian, and will come down quite heavily on MPs who don't support or don't show their loyalty to their party. So the second reading is the main debate for any bill. So the debate has happened and MPs have passed through either door, and let's say it's passed, so it's the ayes win. The Speaker of the House will actually announce the result, and will actually say the ayes have it. And if the bill does not get passed at this stage, then it's finished for that session pretty much. If it is passed, then the bill can continue to the next stage. So once the ayes have it, once it's past the second stage, we now go on to the committee stage. And that's where the bill is heavily scrutinised by a group of MPs, and those MPs are called the Public Bill Committee. This is a committee that's composed of a group of MPs across parties, and they will take on board any suggestions or questions raised during the second reading. They may amend the bill or add to it or take things out of the bill. So they're very much scrutinising and getting the bill in the best form that reflects the parliamentary debate. So the report stage will only happen if the committee has made changes to the bill. And this is the stage where the committee report back to the House of Commons with any proposals or changes that they have made. And the House will debate each change, and again a vote will be taken. So after the pre-parliamentary stages of green-winged dragons, green paper, white paper, draft bill, we have fly slowly clockwise around. First reading, second reading, committee, report. After that, we have a third reading. And this is where the bill has a final read through. There might be a short debate and there may be a final vote if there have been some additional changes. And after this third reading, the bill is said to have passed through the House, leading to the other House. So the parliamentary stage will continue, but it will pass to the other House, which usually is the House of Lords, because most bills start in the House of Commons. In the other House, the bill passes through the same 5 stages. So without looking back at any notes you've made, can you remember those 5 stages? So remember, green-winged dragons is pre-parliamentary stages. Fly slowly clockwise round is the parliamentary stages. Fly slowly clockwise round the. First reading, second reading, committee stage, report stage, third reading. So in the other House, after it's gone through those same 5 stages, the other House can accept the bill, they can reject the bill, or they can even amend it. If the other House amends the bill, it has to refer to the first House. It has to return to the first House, and any changes that have been made has to be approved by the first House. And if that House doesn't accept the amendments, it has to be sent back. And sometimes bills can go back and forth between the 2 houses, and this is called ping pong. So sometimes a bill ping pongs across the 2 houses, especially when the bill is really controversial and the House of Commons is wanting it to go through. They will keep making little changes to try to get it through the House of Lords, etc. Sometimes the House of Lords might actually reject a bill, like it did for the Hunting Act in 2004, which I talked about in my first video in this part of the course. So the House of Lords, just to remind you, can delay a bill for a year, but it can only delay a finance bill for a month. It can't prevent a bill from being passed because the House of Commons can invoke the Parliamentary Acts of 1911 and 1949 to force a bill to go through and become law. And as I said, this happened with the Hunting Act of 2004. If the other House accepts the bill, it is then passed and can receive Royal Assent. So Royal Assent is pretty much a formality and is bestowed by the monarchy or the monarch, and in theory she reads it and approves it and signs it. To be honest, quite often she won't have the whole bill in front of her, she'll just have the title, and a lot of people claim that this is just really a rubber stamp exercise. And after the Royal Assent has happened, the bill becomes law and is now an Act of Parliament. People sometimes ask, can the monarch refuse to give Royal Assent to a bill? So can a monarch prevent a bill becoming law when it has been passed by both Acts of Parliament, by both Houses of Parliament? And it's a really interesting question. The last time the Royal Assent was refused was by Queen Anne, and it was something like the Scottish Militia Act. That was the last time it was refused, but it was actually debated in the media in 2019. So when the Benn Act, which required the government, so Boris Johnson's government, to agree to ask for an extension on Brexit if the terms had not been agreed. When that bill was passed by both houses, the government seriously considered, according to the media, asking the Queen to refuse her royal assent. So royal assent can be, in theory, refused, but only on the advice of her ministers, and generally really just for constitutional acts like European Withdrawal Acts, that sort of thing. So the Queen, in theory, can refuse royal assent, but on the advice of her ministers. And of course, as you're aware, Boris Johnson did not ask the Queen to refuse royal assent on that occasion. So once royal assent has been given, the bill then becomes an act of Parliament. It becomes law. So the parliamentary stages are first reading, second reading, committee, and report. Then we have the third reading. It passes to the other house, who follow the same procedure. And finally, we have the royal assent. Go back over these notes. Make sure you know those stages. It's a really good question to answer on an exam paper, the process of legislation. If you can remember the mnemonic and you'll cover all of the stages, it's a fairly straightforward question to answer. That brings us to the end of this lesson in law. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like it and subscribe to find more videos. Bye.